So today we're going to make a game. In particular, we are going to make a trivia game, like a quiz. So this is extremely popular. I haven't seen it in Canada. Surely it exists somewhere, but it's extremely popular in UK and in the other Commonwealth countries. At least I haven't seen this in I haven't seen this in UK, but in Caribbean you have these pubs, and in UK you have these pubs where typically on Thursday you go and there is a trivia night. It's super popular. The places are packed. You come in and you even have to, that night usually you have to pay to be part of the quiz, and you get a sheet of paper. And there's a master of ceremony, and the master of ceremony is asking these trivia questions. They can be music, some music's playing. You have to guess the band or the year the song came out, and many things like that, right? So people hang for a couple of hours and play a game, and after each round, your answers are checked. By the end of the night, there is a winner. Usually, at least in places that I went to a couple of times, the winner gets a bottle of rum, and also like the second to last person also gets something. Usually this was in Barbados, some Bajan sausages and stuff like this. But apparently this is a very popular with British, with Brits. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna code a trivia quiz. I would like you, if you're not talking, I would like you to mute yourself because there's too many people and I can hear noises. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna code today a trivia quiz. So it gives us an opportunity to code something bigger, to observe the process, to learn a couple of things while doing that. And also it's going to be some of these things you'll have to do for your next assignments, okay? So as a part of this lecture, we're gonna, in order to make a trivia quiz, we need questions, and we're not gonna, our goal is now not to be coming up with questions and answers and things like this. So for that reason, you can go on internet and look for trivia questions and answers, and I did that. You can find files containing these things. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them are for free and stuff like this. So I found a file with about 600 plus trivia questions and answers. So we're gonna try to make a trivia quiz using those. All right, so first of all, we have to understand the file format, because from this file, I need to be able to extract a question, I need to be able to extract answers to these questions, and I need to figure out what's the correct answer and so on. All right, so let's look at the file. So for those of you, I always have students who code along with me. So if you want to do that today, you will need this file. I already posted it on Brightspace. So if you go to Brightspace under lecture 14, you will be able to find a file called quiz.csv. CSV stands for comma separated values. All right, so let me share the screen. I didn't even realize I didn't share a screen. All right, so let's share a screen. And so so those of you who want to code along with me, go to Brightspace and download that file from lecture 14. And so now that you have that file, if you double click on it, so anything on your computer pretty much that you double click on, it's going to display the information in that file. It's going to start some software, a default software for reading and opening a particular file. And that software is going to present to you a user-friendly version of the file. So what do I mean by that? So let's look at my folder here. Under lectures, lecture 14, I have that file. So it's quiz.csv. When you double click on it, possibly it opens with Windows spreadsheet, Excel. You can open it with other type of software like some editors. So I opened it with some text editor. And it looks like this. So let's try to understand. It looks like I added something here. So let's understand what is in this file. All right. So if we look at it, so let's look at this file. All right. Okay, so we have a first line. So what do we have in the first line here? It says, what is the main solid ingredient of alphabet soup? And then we have a question mark. It seems that there is, each line seems to have a question. The next line says, how many cups of tea does the average English person drink a day? Next line has, how many frogs does the average Frenchman eat a year? Well, anyways, so in which country does pivo mean beer, and so on. So it looks like each, I'm going to be taking questions later, Jason. So it looks like each line has a question. So let's see what else each line has. So let's go back to the first line. And we have, after the question, we have pasta. So the question was, what is the main solid ingredient of alphabet soup? I have no idea what alphabet soup is. Maybe some of you know. Then after that, you know, in the line, we have pasta, rice, potato, egg. Then we have something that says food and drink. Then we have some number 1. So we better figure out what these things are before we start coding our solution. Okay, what else do we have here? Which drink is named after a royal family? Bourbon, vodka, rum, tequila, food and drink, and then some number 3. So it seems at least that each line, first of all, has a question. Then it seems to offer 4 answers, right? So pasta, rice, potato, egg. Then this seems to be a category, food and drink. So we have 4 questions, then 4 answers, 4 possible answers. Then we have a category. It's a food and drink category question. Then we have this mysterious number. All right, so let's see. What else do we have? So this one here, it says, in which game might a person have a full house? A poker, cribbage, bridge, backgammon. The category is games, and the number after that is 1. Okay, so to make a trivia game, we need questions. We seem to have questions. We need some answers. We seem to have 4 answers offered for all of them. What else do we need in order to make a game? If I have a question and if I have 4 answers, what else do I need?
A right answer.
We need to know what's the correct answer, right? So from this file, we better figure out where is the correct answer. How do I know which of these answers is correct? For example, certainly I have no idea which is the main solid ingredient of alphabet soup. Nor do I know how many cups of tea this average person has. There are some here that I know. For example, there was something about tennis. I know that. How many games must you win to win a normal set in tennis? 6, 8, 10, 5. Okay, I know that one. You need to win 6 games. So in this case, that's the answer. Okay, so can somebody guess, how do we know which one of these answers is correct?
Yeah, the number that you have, like for the poker one, it says which game has the full house. We know it's poker, so we look what the number is. It's 1, so 1 must mean the answer is the index.
Okay, so the suggestion is, and I find it, and it's really reasonable suggestion, that was what I thought first time I looked at this file, is that this mysterious number here, that's where the correct answer is. But it turns out, actually, that you're going to find counterexamples in this. For example, look at this one. How long is, oh, maybe this one, no, this one is correct. But there was one about pivo, which I know that because it's the same word in my language. In which country does pivo mean beer? And here we have a 2 at the end. It would suggest that the second answer is correct. But the answers are Czech Republic, Portugal, Greece, and France. And the correct answer is actually Czech Republic. You don't say pivo in Portugal. So this last mysterious number is actually not the correct answer. Okay, any other conjectures? Let's look at this one. How long is a regular soccer game? Do we know the answer to that? 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 120 minutes, 30 minutes? The answer is 90 minutes. Any suggestion? Oh, you guys must know this. If you're killing a Goomba, what game are you playing? Super Mario, Doom, Sonic the Hedgehog, Quake?
Super Mario, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so where's the correct answer?
But that's strange though, because games, beside it says 2, so that means the correct answer is Doom, apparently.
But that's what I'm saying, that
Is it
the
just always
the last number, as you see in this file, is not telling you where the correct answer is. So I'm now asking you, given that that's not what the correct answer is, what is the correct answer? How do we find the correct answer?
Is it always the first
It's
listed
always
one?
the first in this file. So of course, part of our coding will be, we better shuffle these answers. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty boring game pretty fast. As soon as they figure out that the answer is always 1, like the first answer. Okay, so now we pretty much know everything that we need to know to make a game, which is we're going to have each line contains all the necessary information that I need for a given question. I have a question, I have 4 answers, I know which one is correct. I even know a category if I want to make a fancier game. And it turns out actually that this last number is a difficulty level. Okay, so when you are making a game, you may use that information as well. Okay, so first thing we need to do is open a file and see what we get. Okay, so because we'll need to process this file to figure, and you've already seen this, but I wrote the code for you. So one of the goals for today is that you actually know yourself what's going on when you're opening a file. Okay, so luckily in Python, so let's do that first. Luckily in Python, as usual, things are very simple. So what's a command to open a file? A command is called open. And inside of the file, you will put a string name, and you will put a string, and inside of the string, you're going to put a file name. You have to make sure that that file is in the same directory, in same folder. So here you see this is, well, I should rename this to B, but doesn't matter. This is my file, the Python file. This is the file that I'm opening. And in that case, this command is going to work. If they're not in the same directory, you have to spell in the whole path of where this file is. By the way, you shouldn't do that when you're submitting your assignment, because if you spell a full path in your assignment, then when TA downloads that assignment, it's not the same path that they have on their computer, right? So just put the 2 files together. I got an email from a student saying that that in the previous assignment, somehow they had a problem with the code that I wrote, so that they hard coded the whole path. You will not be penalized for that. I will ask TAs to put back to remove the path so it doesn't crash because of that silly reason. Okay. All right. Anyways, go back to the lecture. So this opens a file, and basically you get back a file object. But what you really want is to read the file. So to get something that is that is recognizable for you. So if you do this read, so now you apply a read method to that file object. It's going to basically return one huge string, one string containing all of the information that is inside of the file, all the text that is inside of the file. So let's look at it. All right. So this thing is going to return one ginormous string. Okay. I'm going to call it lines, and it should be clear soon why lines. But let's just run this to make sure it's running, and it is. It's running, and actually make sure that what I'm saying is correct, so that you understand what type of data you have in this, that it's really one ginormous string. And let's look at what the string looks like. Okay, so I'm not just going to do lines, because this is going to print that 600, a ginormous string with 600 plus questions. I'm just going to take a slice. I'm going to say, oh, show me first 300 characters. There it is. So let's see what we have. So you see it's a one string. So what do we have? what we have is that, let's notice some things that you actually didn't see on when you opened it, when you double click on the file. When you double click on the file again, what you see is what an average user, non-programmer needs to see in a file. So user-friendly data meant for a non-programming human. But when you open a file with a programming language like a Python and read it, you're gonna actually get more detail. You're gonna actually get correct view of what the data inside is like. So let's see what is there. So that was not what I wanted to open. I'm going to idle here. So what we have, here's a question: what is a solid ingredient alphabet soup? We have a question mark, but notice now what we have there that you didn't see in a normal view. We have a /t there. So let's go back here. You couldn't see a /t after that pasta. Okay, so then you have this answer: pasta /t, rice /t, potato /t, egg /t, food and drink /t, and then that mysterious number that we now know is difficulty. And then we have a /n, new line, okay, for the new line. All right, why is this important? Because as you as a programmer, you need to know, because you're gonna be, let's say you need to display a question where you need, in order to display a question, you need to know where the question starts and where the question ends. And then you need to know, display the answers. Well, to display the answer, you need to know where a particular answer starts and where it ends. And it may not be as obvious because the answer, for example, doesn't necessarily have to be one word. Let's look at some of these things, specifically the Super Mario answer, for example. Where was it? Here. Let's look at this. When you are processing this, if you are killing a Goomba, what game are you playing? Okay, you can say, okay, I can figure out where the question starts and ends because it starts at the beginning of the new line and it ends with a question mark. Okay, but then how do you figure out what are the answers here? Is the answer, because it's not human reading, it's computer reading, is the answer one is Super and answer two is Mario Doom? You have to know where the answers start and where the ends. And we don't know that here, looking at the human view. We only know it because we have a priori information about this. Okay, but the program view reveals you that actually this information, the useful information, is separated by a special character, in this case, /t. Okay, so what are these comma CSV files? These are so-called comma separated values. So it's a file where with a special character, you indicating where important information starts and ends. In particular, in comma separated files, each line is a record about something. In our case, each line is all the information about particular question. So it's a record for a question, okay? So the records are separated by new lines. And inside of a record, there is data, in particular, there are so-called fields. A field is a useful piece of information that is within the line. And we have seen, when we looked at it through Python's eyes, if you like, that the fields or useful pieces of information within a record, within one question, are separated for us with a /t, okay? Often it's separated by a comma, so that's why they call comma separated file, but actually it should be called, let's say, tab separated file, but it doesn't really matter. The point is we have a special character that tells us where we should break that string. Where does a particular piece of data starts and where does it end? Okay, so now that we understand that, let's start coding this. Trivia quiz. All right, so first thing, we have this ginormous string. We don't want to be working with a ginormous string. So what is our quiz going to need to do? It's going to need to display the question, display the answer. So I want to be able to say, okay, give me one question, right? So at least let's first split these huge strings into a bunch of questions, right? Into individual questions. And we know that individual records for each question are separated by new lines. So I might as well split this huge string on the new line. So at least then that's going to give me a list where each element is a list of strings where each string has data about one particular question. Okay, so let's do that. The command for that is split lines. Okay, you can do this or you can do split and you tell Python to split it on a new line. Okay, both of these things do the same thing. So split lines splits a string every time it hits a new line. Okay, so new line is /n. All right, so let's see what's inside of lines now. Let's run it. By the way, when you're coding, this is what you should be doing all the time. You literally write one line of code and make sure it's working and then you know what it's doing. Don't write even 2 lines of code. It can be too much, right? All right, so let's see what we have in lines. As I said, I claimed that if you have a string, and we've seen that this was a string, then split lines returns a list of strings where the original string was broken into elements of the list every time a new line was encountered. So let's see first 3 elements of this list. Okay, so I take a slice, see first 3 elements, and what do we have? Here's where one string starts, and here we have a comma and it ends. So indeed, we have now a list that contains strings where each string contains each element of that list is a string that contains useful information about particular question. Okay, then we have a next one and so on. Or we can say, okay, lines, give me a question 252, 355, and it's this one, right? How many players make a rugby union team? 15, 11, 10, 14. Apparently it's 15, right? Because we now know that the correct first answer is correct. All right, so now that we have that, we ask ourselves, okay, so what do I have to do as part of this program? One of the first things you'll have to do is you're gonna have to say, okay, display the question. Well, now in these elements of the list, the question is still kind of mixed up with the answer. So why don't we, wouldn't it be more useful to have each of these fields that I need as a separate piece of data? So I can now split that again. So what I do now for each question, I say, I want you to split this string on the tabs so I can then have each of the pieces of the data that I need. I can use it for what I want. So you can even do it like this, right? Just to see if you don't know what this does. This is a wonderful thing about programming, unlike solving mathematical problems, that you can get instant feedback. You can try yourself. You say, okay, split, let me see what happens if I split this string. I want to split it on /t because this is where useful information is. /t, split it on /t, and you get immediately, you see what you get. So you get a list. You get a list containing 7 elements for the 7 useful pieces of information that each record for the question has. All right, so first element of this list is the question, the second is the first answer, third is the third answer, a second answer, another answer, next element is a category, and last element of the list is a difficulty. So we have a list with 7 elements containing 7 pieces of data. Okay, so if I want answer to the questions, I know they're in position 1, 2, 3, 4 of this list. So we can now do this for all the questions in here. So how do we do this? I go through this list lines where each element is an individual string containing all the info about the question. And I take each element and I split it. Okay, so I want to go for line. So that's going to be that one string from lines for line in lines. I want to take a line and I want to split it on tabs. Okay, and I want this to become part of my structure for the question. So I'm going to have an empty list questions. We start with an empty list, and each time I I create a little list with 7 useful pieces of information. I add it to my questions. So I do questions dot append, and I append the useful information there. Okay, that's as many lines of code as you ever write before you test it and understand what's going on. All right, so there we go. Let's now see what we have in these questions. All right, show me first 3 elements. Oh, no. You see, this means all of them, and there's almost 800 lines. No, I want, show me first 3 elements of this list. So what do we have? Remember that we took a string here and split it on T, and we got a little list of 7 elements. So what question is, it's a list of lists. So one of the take-home thing here is that we are now actually working with what is called 2D lists. But in Python, really, there's nothing new about 2D lists because each element of the list can be just about anything, right? It's not as restrictive in any other languages. Anyways, but just to show you, you do have here what is called a 2D list, where elements of a list are another list. So here we have a huge list with about 600 plus element, where each element is a little list with 7 elements, where this sublist or little list that I called contains 7, each of them contains 7 useful pieces of information about a question. So here we see that the first element of question list is another list containing these 7 pieces of information, and they are the question, 2 answers, category, and whatever the difficulty. Okay, so there is the first list, starts with square bracket, end with square bracket. Here's the second list, and so on. All right, so now that we hopefully, and this is what we're going to work with. All right, because for example, if you go in this list, I do questions, give me the first question, data about the first question. I get a little list where nicely I know that the first element is the question. So if I want to print the question, I just say print the first element of that list. If I want to print the answers, I just print the next 4 elements of the list, and so on. All right, and I can access all these questions. I don't know, let's see, 508 questions. That's what it is. I have no idea what this is. What were my, anyways, all right, let's not get distracted. Okay, so, now that we have data, what is the first thing that our trivia quiz should do if we're gonna play a game, right? So what's the first thing that it does?
Ask the question or
ask
introduce.
the question, exactly, ask the question. So let's code that. Let's make a function that asks a question. All right, so let me make, by the way, here I just put a little note for us so we remember where the things are in the little lists with 7. So in index 0, you have a question, index 1 to 4, you have possible answers, and index 5 on the list, you have a category, and index 6 of the list, you have difficulty. All right, so let's write a little function called ask question. All right. And okay, in order to ask a question, I need information about that question. So we better have some, we better pass some data here, right? If I'm gonna display it. So what this function is gonna do is just gonna display the question and answer, okay? So it better, so this function, so let's understand how we would code it. For example, if I have a question, let's write a whole game just trying to ask one question, okay? Let me pick, I'm gonna go to questions. I'm gonna take the first one, right? So here, we are working with one question. I'm trying to get the game to work with this, okay? So I better pass this, give this piece of information containing all these 7 pieces of data. I better pass it to this function, okay? So this function should have at least one parameter. I'm going to also call it Q for a question because it's a reasonable parameter. And that's going to be one of those. So we're going to, every time we're going to, Q is going to be one of those little lists with 7 pieces of information. All right, so I first should display a question. Okay, first I'm going to make a little empty space, and now I'm going to display a question. All right, so if I'm going to display a question, what should I put here? Where the cursor is. If I want to display the question.
Print
Display-
Q1.
Q, why 1?
0, I mean.
Q0, exactly. So Q0, let's see that if it's working. All right. Oh, I have to call that, right? In order to, for a function to do something, I better call it. So we call this function as question and pass it this particular question, which in our case is the first one. All right, so it's displaying a question. What's the next thing we should do after displaying the question?
Display the possible answers.
Exactly. So we have the answers in position 1 to 4, indices 1 to 4. So we can just make a little loop for I in range. I want to actually start at 1 because at 0 is a question. At 1, I want to go to 4, including 4. So this should be 5. I'm going up to 5. And we print Q of I. Right, so this should display the answer. So let's see. All right, that works. So at least we managed to do that part. Would you change something about this, about the answers, right? When you're asking somebody for the questions, how would you like them to give you an answer? Would you change something about the way you display the question?
In the same line.
We can do the same line, although sometimes it's less readable. What I'm heading to more is that the player will have to give you the answer. Okay, so would you like the answer? For me as a player, would you like me to do this? Like if you were a grader, would you rather be reading somebody's handwriting? They have to write pasta. Even as a programmer, would you rather have a pasta? Or would you rather have something else as an answer?
To answer as
Like a
1, 2, 3,
number.
4,
Exactly.
like number.
Exactly. Like in multiple choice questions. I mean, it's much easier to deal with the numbers. Even if you manual grader, it's also easier when you are writing your code, right? So let's display next to these things. We need to display 1 next to pasta, 2 next to rice, 3 next to potato, and 4 next to egg. If I want to do that, what should I put here?
Like you should do like
Exactly.
string I or something.
1 to 4. Okay, yeah, exactly. All right, so that part is done. So actually, now when we're asking for answers, we can just say, give me 1, 2, 3, or 4, rather than them typing out the whole answer and misspelling and God knows what not. All right, so we are done with asking the question. So in our game, what is next?
Get the answer.
Exactly, exactly. So next thing we should code is getting the answer. All right. So let's write a function that reads the answer from the user. I'm going to call it read answer. In fact, I'm going to call it raw read answer, and hopefully it's going to become clear why. When we're reading an answer, we are just asking a user to give me what we want to do. We just want to ask the user, give me 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I don't need to pass any extra information to this function. So this function doesn't have any input parameters. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to ask user answer with 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, we can even make a little space here so it looks better. Answer with 1, 2, 3. Give me an answer 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, and it's always I find it easier to work with strings than to work with integers than with strings and all of that. So we want to convert this to an integer, and that's your answer. Okay, and then we return the answer. So we have a little function that handles the input. Return the answer. All right, so row answer. So after asking the question, I can try to get the answer. If I manage, this should be returned to me, and I should capture that answer. We can even now code the correctness checking, because we know, at least for now, we know that the correct answer, if the answer that is stored here is 1, then the player is correct. And otherwise, they are incorrect. And otherwise they're incorrect, and we can even tell them what the correct answer is. Incorrect, the correct answer is, where is the correct answer? We have, it's in question Q, in position 1 is our of the little list, correct answer. All right, so let's see if that works. Again, I coded way too many things. You shouldn't do that. All right, so let's see. We now know the correct answer is pasta. And oh, what did I do here? Sorry, I pressed something. 1 and then enter, and it tells me correct. And then let's see what happens if I do incorrect answer. 2 tells me incorrect. The correct answer was pasta. Okay, all right. But let's run this again. And I'm distracted. I'm not reading, like many of you are not reading what I write in these assignments and stuff. And I am distracted and I say, oh, the answer is pasta. And boof, it crashes. Okay, so what crashed exactly?
You didn't have like, you were
Which
supposed
line
to read.
crashed exactly? What crashed?
The converting of the integer part, because you can convert a string.
Exactly. So let's see here what happened. I was asked for an input. That part is fine. This for sure didn't crash. But then whatever user entered, I'm trying to convert it to integer. Okay. But this int function only works if a string that input function returns looks like an integer. Okay, so let's double check that. If it looks like an integer, it nicely returns you an actual integer. But if it doesn't look like an integer, if it looks like this, it's going to crash. Okay, you get exactly that value, invalid literal for int, blah. Okay, so far throughout the semester, when you were doing your assignments and possibly tests, I can't remember anymore what was where, I was always telling you, you can assume that the user will give you the correct data type. You couldn't assume that's going to be correct values, right? It could be, in this case, you still have to check that they give you 1, 2, 3, 4, but you could assume that they give you integer, exactly for this reason, right? So when you're asking for user for integer, I would tell you, you can assume that they're going to give you correct data type, but you should check whether you get the correct values, the values that you accept. From now on, you don't have to do that anymore, not have to. For now, we're gonna learn how to handle this. It's actually very simple. So let's see what happens. And one needs to have the way to deal with this, because what the user is going to enter is outside of your control, right? As we have seen, it's outside of your control what they're gonna type in. So you better have a way to deal with them not following the instructions correctly, such that you can give them a proper message, error message, rather than just crashing, right? Okay, so let's see how to do that. So whenever you're in a situation that you don't know, it's outside of your control, what's going to happen, what the user is going to enter, and you are aware that them entering something can cause a crash, you should put that line of code into this construct. It's called try. Okay, so you type a keyword try. It's really simple. It just says try to do this. That's what it means. So you put a keyword try. It's like an if statement, except that it doesn't have any conditions. It just says try, you put a colon, and then you have a block of commands. You know, in our case, it's only one. And what it does, it says, try to do this, right? If you get a string that looks like an int, great, execute this and continue. If you don't, if you're about to crash, don't crash, okay? Don't crash. Rather than crashing, execute this block. So when this is about to crash, this part gets executed, right? So basically it stops the crash, if you like, it catches that crash, and instead of crashing, displays an error message that you want. So here's my error message, because I know the only reason this would ever crash is if a user didn't give me an integer. Then I can give a meaningful message here, and I say print, what do I have? Let me use the message. Answer must be an integer, right? Or you can even add error or something. Input error or whatever. Answer must be an integer, or the answer, or an answer. It's not my best, these articles in English. Okay, so, all right, so let's see what that does, right? So let's understand how this works. All you need is two keywords, try, and then a block of code for try, and then accept, and then a block of code for accept. So what Python does, it executes the code normally, the try part, it follows the code, and if it executed normally, it ignores this accept and continues with the program, all right? If it's about to crash, then this except, you can think of it, this concept even called try catch. This except, you can think of it, it catches that error rather than crashes, it catches it and it prints your custom made message, right? So then it executes this block, right? And then it continues with the program. So let's see if that fixed our issues. Right, so I said, oh, the answer is rice. Up, it crashes again, but it's not the same error. So, and in fact, it seemed to have even catch the error, answer must be integer. So that part worked. So what did crash here?
It didn't receive an answer
Exactly.
to return.
So now we have an issue that if this part is going to crash, well, if this part is going to be crashed and then it's interrupted and you jump to accept block, nothing was ever assigned to this variable ANS. And remember that in Python, in order to create a variable, you have to assign something to it. So this part, nothing was ever created to ANS variable. So after printing an error message, we get to this line, it says return whatever is in variable ANS, but we don't have that variable. I mean, this should be a recognizable message for your local variable ANS reference before assignment. Nothing was assigned to that variable. There's many ways to deal with this, but here's an easy little trick that you can do. You can just assign something to it. I'm gonna assign an integer. But I'm going to assign an integer outside of the range because this is something I invented. Let's not confuse something I assigned to a variable with an actual answer, because, you know, if I assign 2 to it, the rest of the code, and the user never put 2, the rest of the code then is going to say, oh, there is a mistake. You gave a wrong answer. So one way to do it is actually to assign it some integer outside of the range. I'm going to get to you, Kasim. And then now when I run it, if I put pasta here, it's going to say error, answer must be an integer. And here, incorrect, correct answer is pasta. Oh, that's because actually 0 was assigned here. So we're going to deal with that later. Actually, I still am returning an incorrect. I'm still returning an incorrect answer. We still have to be checking that part. Is my answer now in the correct range? So first we ensure that we are going to get an integer. Once I get an actual integer, then I check, did I get an integer in the range 1 to 4? Yes, Kasim.
Yeah, my question was for what we're doing right now, could we have put the return answer inside the try?
Yes, I last, in a previous section, I also got the question, but that doesn't solve anything. First of all, when this crashes, let me comment this out and let's understand why. Why it doesn't answer this problem. Let me first show that it doesn't solve this problem. I put rice. All right, so we still get that variable ANS is not assigned, and it should be clear why. Because the whole block is not executed. The way the try except works is that you enter the try block. This is the first line of a try block. You go to the right hand side and this gets executed, this line, and this crashes if I put rice. Then the whole try block is skipped. So this is never going to get executed. Never, and nothing is assigned to ANS, and this is not going to get executed. Whatever line crashes, it completely stops the execution of this. It gets skipped, and then you jump to accept.
Yeah, but if we didn't have that return at the end, would that fix it? If we just had the return in the try and no return at the end?
Yeah, but I need the answer. Then it's not working when I get a correct answer here. Okay, so if I remove this, then my function is not doing what I want. It's not returning the answer that the user entered. Like here, I want to know what the user entered, right? So if the user actually forward instruction says 1 is my answer, well, then you're not returning 1. I want to work with that answer later on. Okay, if I remove this, what now? What does this function do?
Yeah, I wanted the return to be in the try, but not outside the try. That's what I meant.
Ah, I see. Very good. I see. Okay, that makes sense. Now I understand what the person in the previous section was suggesting. Very good. Okay. I like that very much. It gets rid of this unnecessary 0 thing. Very good suggestion. Okay. All right. So now when we give an answer, very good. And if it's not going to crash if I enter pasta. Okay, very good. All right, let's work with that. Thank you. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that if you that here you may be getting none, so we have to be careful here. In this case, when we actually do have a crash, this function is going to return none. We have to keep that in mind, right? When we are working with the thing here. Okay. Yes, Jason.
When you move the return answer into the try block, how is it still able to return something even when you enter like an error number? Because for example, let's say if you enter pasta, then doesn't it just go to the accept and says error answer must be an integer, and then it doesn't return anything?
That's exactly what it did. It didn't return anything. It returned none. It does return something. Sorry, it does return something. So what gets executed here, that's what I was saying. You have to keep in mind now that your answer may be none. So what's happening here, over there, the comparison that we are getting is none equal to 1, and that doesn't crash, just says it's not equal to 1.
Wait,
so
but you're not returning none though.
Answer. It does. We learned that. Every function that doesn't have a return statement returns none by default. So when we execute this, we didn't encounter return statements, so this thing ends up here. The function just terminates, and therefore it
returns none. Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, so we can even print it here because it's in the main. Print what's in an ANS, it's none. Okay. All right, so where were we? Okay, so this is what I mean by raw. The reason I call this function raw answer is that it's really, I'm just trying to get an integer, right? So that is the goal of this. Give me a raw answer, I want an integer. But actually what I really want is to have a read answer function that in addition checks, once I manage to get an integer, in addition checks that integer is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, because these are the only answers I'm accepting. Okay, so let's code an actual function that I want. Okay, I want a function read answer. Okay, and this function, so here I'm going to be calling that function, the one that really reads answer. So that function read answer, first of all calls this one to try to get an integer. Okay, so this function here tries to get an integer. Okay. So I'm trying to get an integer here. And okay, so now what I should do is I should test if that answer is 1 to 4. Okay, so what do I need a while loop for? I need to repeat the question as long as the user is not giving me 1 to 4, right? So let's see, we're gonna figure out what the condition is here to enter. So what I wanna do is what I want is that I'm going to have to repeat this question. All right, so there's some condition that we're going to determine, which is, so if the answer that is stored here is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I'm happy. I don't want to enter the while loop. Okay, all I want is to skip the while loop because I got what I wanted. I don't want to ask the question again. And I want to return. So if what is stored in ANS is 1, 2, 3, or 4, I just want to return it because I got the answer that I want. And then I'm going to use it in the main to determine if I got a correct answer. Okay. But if I didn't get what I want, so if I have, if I got anything other than 1, 2, 3, or 4, I want to enter the loop and ask a question again. So what is the condition that I should put here?
While answer is not equal to 1 or answer equal not to 2 and so on till 4.
Or like less than or equal to 4.
Okay, so let's try that. While answer is less than or equal. So I'm gonna pick that answer just because I want to show you something.
That makes sense.
Okay, you can ask this. Okay, so you can ask this. This is the type of expression that you have seen in math that basically means is an answer between 1 and 4. First of all, already here we are working with the assumption that answer is an integer. Otherwise, we will be accepting 3.4 or something like this. But anyways, so I want to mention one thing here, first of all, is that this type of expression works in Python, that you put this inequality where a variable is in the middle. You're asking is an answer between 1 and 4, and you've seen this in math. In other programming languages, don't accept this type of expression. You would have to write is answer greater than or equal to 1 and answer less than or equal to 4. You have to write it like that. Okay, but let's see if this is the correct Boolean expression. So let's figure out, just a moment, let's figure out, let's say user enters 2. We are happy with the 2. If what's stored in the answer is 2, I don't want to be asking question again, right? And here we have is 2 between 1 and 4. The answer is true. I'm going to enter and ask a question again. Is that what we want?
No. No, we need to add a not.
Exactly. I want to enter when I don't get answer between 1 and 4. Okay, that's when you want to enter the loop. By the way, we have to now keep in mind that it's possible that this ANS now is none, because when I had it as a 0, this would have completely worked. But now I have to check what does it do if we do 1 less than equal. If we get here false, then we are all set. It should give false. No, but it crashes. You see, we have to be careful now because we are working with a none. We cannot be, it could be, remember that we exited here. So answer is none. This is going to crash. So we have to keep none in our mind. So when do I want to answer, when do I want to enter here?
When answer is not none?
Yes, but because, okay.
Professor?
Yeah, but we have a little bit of issue here with the none.
We can add an if statement to convert
yes, we need an if
to 0.
That's the problem, because otherwise it's going to crash because we have an or. Normally we would want to say, I want to enter the loop with an answer is equal to none, or one of these things happened. But that means that this is still going to get executed with answer none and it's going to crash. Okay, so you need kind of an if statement here to deal with the none. You can do it. This is not difficult, but just for the ease of it, I'm going to put the other one, although I do like this one, right? So let's put the other one. So I don't add the extra if statement, and then you need an extra loop for the none because you also want to ask the question again with the none. Okay, so let's use my workaround. Although, again, as I said, I think this is cleaner, the other one, than this kind of, you're putting a fake answer in there. Okay, just so we don't need work with the none, let me put it like this. Oh, we don't have to do it here. Because actually the other thing that I wanted to show you, it's actually clean without if statement. It's very cute. And I'm going to put it the way it was. There's a way to do this in Python actually that I want to show you anyways, even forget about the none. The easiest way to do this is just to ask, I want to enter the loop and my answer is not one of these. It's not in 1, 2, 3, 4, right? When do I want to answer the loop? If the answer is not one of these 4, I want to enter the loop. And then none shouldn't even crash this one. It's just asking, is none in this list? So none, not in 1, 2, 3, 4. That one is working, and you enter the loop and ask the question again. Okay. So if you're going to write a Boolean expression, you would need an extra if statement for that to handle the none. But with this type of solution, which I really like this in Python, that you can ask this, it's kind of cleaner and easier to understand than some of the Boolean expressions. So you just said enter the loop if you didn't get what you want, if the answer is not one of these things that I want. Okay. So let's see if now this is working. So basically, if I'm correct, now we have a working game, a silly one because it only asks one question, but it should be handling everything. So let's try that. All right, answer. Let's say I first am not following. Oh, it says arrow, answer must be an integer, and I'm asked again. Okay, so that part is working. I've entered the test. I'm still distracted and I put -2 and it says answer is not now in the correct range. By the way, we can put, let me do that. Rather than just repeating the question, why is the interrupt not working on my, let me just give it what it wants. So here you can put an error message saying print. What do we want? Answer must be 1, 2, 3, or 4. All right, so now we have a meaningful message there. What did we say? It works with the text. When I'm entering something outside of the range, it's warning me. I'm answering, you know, for everything. True, everything is handled correctly. And now when I answer 2, it says it's a wrong answer. The correct answer is pasta. So we have a working game with one question, and it doesn't have to be the first question. I can really ask the question, show me 451st question. I run my game and it shows 451st question. And we have a question that says, who had a guest appearance as Joey Stoker in the TV series Friends? Joey Stoker in TV series Friends. Brooke Shields, Isabella Rossellini, Reese Witherspoon, Julia Roberts. I wouldn't know the answer to this question, but apparently it's one. Maybe you guys know. Apparently Friends are super popular again. Okay. So, where am I? Okay, so by the way, here we already can do something rather than me hard coding this part. Okay, so where am I? Oh, by the way, here's something I really wanted to also show you. It's so now take a little rest from the game that we are making, and let's go back to this try and accept. I want to show you something else about try and accept. Okay, so here, so let's say that I have another line of code, and we are really now not doing the game, right? I'm telling somebody, give me 1, 2, 3, or 4, because next line of my code, for some reason, I have to do something like result. I'm computing something in the result. I need to, whatever user gave me, I need to do 10 divided by what they gave me. Okay, let's loot. That's important. Okay, imagine I have a line like this. We are doing something else, right? I'm asking for an input. I need an integer, 1, 2, 3, 4, because then I have to do 10 divided by that integer. Okay, so I run this code. And I enter 0. Okay. It didn't crash. Does that surprise you? Look, so what's happened here, what's stored in ANS, so we can even see, oh, I can't see it. I didn't. What's stored in ANS is an integer 10. sorry, it's an integer 0 because that's what I entered, then it will convert it to integer. So what we did is 10 divided by 0. So it should have crashed and given me a message division by 0, but it didn't. Okay, so after this line, I should have expected a crash, and it didn't crash. Why?
You have your try and except.
Exactly. So any type of, so this one, try except is gonna catch any type of these so-called Python exceptions, right? This type of crashes, not syntax error, this type of exceptions that happen, right? These crashes because of this kind of unexpected, invalid thing that the user is doing. Okay, so, and in fact, you can see that except catched it because it printed this message, but the message is not really correct, right? I mean, it's not relevant. That's not the reason I crashed. It's not the reason that 0 is an integer. That's not the reason it crashed. So the message is incorrect. Sorry, the message was error, answer must be an integer. So actually this except, so this line worked, this didn't crash. We got to this line, this crashed, so therefore the try block was interrupted and except block was executed and Python types error, answer must be an integer. Okay, so error, answer must be an integer. So this was printed and so on. All right, so, but in this is not exactly a type of a message that you want to get. You would like to get, actually, this didn't crash because somebody didn't give me an integer. It crashed because somebody is dividing by 0. So either I remove this answer must be an integer, so I should just put an error. So generic, you can do this. You can just have a generic error message, but you must know how frustrating that is. Then you get that 404 error or something, and you have no idea what it is, right? So it's much better to give a meaningful message. And actually Python allows you to do it. It allows you to catch specific errors. So let's go and see what do we get when we try to convert pasta to integer. We got so-called Python tell you what are the names of these errors. So instead of just putting generic except, you can say that if you catch value error, then I know it's because the user didn't give me an integer. Then print that. Then you can have as many except blocks as you want. Then you can say what type of exception error did we get when we were dividing by 0? Python gives you the name of that type of error. So it's this first thing in the last line. You just copy paste it. It's 0 division error. I say, if you catch this error, so it's if this line is that crashes, then you give print. Let me avoid the tabbing error, the indenting error. Then you know it crashed because of division with 0 error. Okay, so let's try now. All right, so the person enters 0, and now we actually get division with 0 method. If we enter, I don't know, pasta again, we get answer must be an integer. Okay, so each one of these Python specific errors, you can catch them. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this because it really wasn't a part of our code, and this we can move. I can leave this specific thing because the only thing that can crash here, the only thing is a value error, right? Because the only danger is like this input cannot crash. It's just returning a string, right? And int is the only thing that can crash, this function called int, and it will give a value error. Okay, so I might as well leave it. I might as well be specific, right? I'm not gonna miss an error. Okay. So we have a working game with one question. All right, so what would you do next?
You can randomly generate the value of Q.
Right, so instead of me hard coding, pick a question 0, pick a question 400, pick a question 451, let's pick a random question. Okay, so what is this? These questions here is a list. What I want is a random element of that list because element of that list is actually a data about one question. That's why here I actually already had that I imported random. So So, well, actually, you could have caught something else here. Keyboard interrupt. I did Control C, so you even can catch that. You can do except if you're catching keyboard interrupt by somebody. Anyways, but that's on the side. And then you can print a message. You want to get out, goodbye, something like that. Anyways, but here in a random module, there is a function, help random dot choice. Okay. It's a function that gives you random element from a sequence. So lists are sequences. There is something a little bit wrong about this function description. I noticed this actually. It's starting with like Python 6. Their help pages are a little bit less detailed as they should be. It says a method. Method typically means that you're calling it in an object-oriented way with a dot operator. But this function actually is nicely showing you the way to call it is choice. First the function name, then you pass it the list, right? So anyways, so instead of me hard coding the question, what I want is I want to call a method random and method from the random module. I want to call function choice, and I want to pass it a list of questions. So I want to pass it this list, and function choice just returns a random element of that list, and I'm storing it now in question queue. So let's see if we are now getting a random question rather than me hard coding it. And indeed, this is not the question that we have seen. It says, where is the spaceship from in the film Quatermass and Pitt? Never heard of it. Apparently the answer is Mars. Okay, and let's pretend we know the answer and we are correct. Okay, so now we are able to pick a random question. So what would you do next? So we have a one question game.
Shuffle the answers. Shuffle the answers.
So, what did you say, Juan?
Shuffle the answers.
Shuffle the answers. Ah, yes. So there are two things to do, all right? To make this game in any way reasonable. First of all, currently it asks one question. Second of all, we know where the answer is, right? So it's, I mean, we could use this, we could make a game for ourselves. You can, you know, invite your friends, well, once Corona is done. And although you can find probably more current questions, I think these are from 80s, the questions that I have. Okay, so let me first code the part where we're asking more than one question. And then we're gonna we better shuffle the answers, right? So it's not, the game is not boring. And then you can play it yourself, right? Because you don't know where the answer is, what the answer is. Okay, so typically, you don't want a game to go on forever. One way to ensure that and one way to make it exciting is to give a certain number of lives, right? So I can say you can keep on playing as long as you have a certain number of lives. Every time you have an incorrect question, you lose a life, something like that, right? Okay, so how many lives do you want to give to a player?
3.
3 lives, all right. Player has 3 lives, and I want to be doing this, asking question and checking answers. So this part, no, not creating the questions, we do that. So let's see where we at. Let me indicate this. It's my main. This is in the beginning, me organizing the data. And it's here, this part that does picking a random question, getting the answer that needs to be repeated. So I'm going to indent it. All right, I indent it. And I say while I have lives. So while number of lives, you can keep on getting questions and trying to answer them, while my number of lives is at least 1. Okay, so that's the that part. So let's see if we need to change something here. Okay, so the answer here, when we are correct, that is great. Maybe we need to have a score. Okay, and you get some points. So let's have a score as well as lives. So actually lives, I lost that variable. Lives is 3 lives. Score in the beginning, you have 0. And then, you know, if you correct, score is score plus, how many points do you want to give for a correct answer?
1.
The difficulty level.
10.
Difficulty level, yeah, 1. I would have also said 1, but then I thought that maybe difficulty level as well is an appropriate one, right? If you answer, we have that data. Remember, the last piece of data in the question is the difficulty level. So if you answer a question of difficulty 1, you get 1 point, difficulty 2, 2 points, difficulty 3, 3 points, like you had in your test. This time, not all the questions had the same difficulty level. Well, they never have the same difficulty level, but this time they actually had different number of points. Okay, so I want to give it the difficulty level. So what should I put here if I want to? So my question, the data about my questions are in variable Q, which is a list with 7 elements, and the difficulty is the last element. So what should I put here?
Q6.
-1.
Q6 or Q -1, and don't forget we are adding things, that's a string to convert it to an int. Okay, so that's the score. When we are wrong, well, we better, you know, lose a life. Lives is equal to lives -1. So maybe at home, or but there's many ways. We're going to finish like in 5 minutes, but there are many ways in which you can enhance this game. You can implement here that maybe every 20 points you get another life. You can implement that you have levels, right? That you only asking questions from level 1, but when somebody has a certain number of score points, they move to level 2 and so on. So you know, you can keep on working on this and perfecting it. But for now, let's leave it at that. And once we check, maybe we want to give a status to a player. We say print, you have lives. Oh, what did I do here? I don't know how I got arithmetic error. Copy pasted there. Lives left. And left, and what else do I want to say? You have that many lives left, and your score is blah, score. So we give them an update. All right, again, I wrote too many lines of code. So let's see what happens here. So now, if I didn't mess this up, we should have a working game where we know, which is much more reasonable. You ask questions, you have lives, you have all these features, except that we know where the answer is. And even if we didn't, probably after playing a game for a while, we would figure it out. So eventually it becomes a boring game. Okay. So Princess Jasmine was a character in which animated film? Okay, let's say that I know this. And it turns out that it's correct. I have still 3 lives, and this difficulty was 2, so I have a score 2. By the way, you can print that also to the, I guess that's another type of information that we could have displayed here in Ask Question. We could have displayed the difficulty level, and we could have displayed the category. Is it movies and stuff? That's another thing that you can generate. You can ask a user which category they want questions from and stuff like this. Okay, so the answer, what was a hit for the Bee Gees? I have no idea. Okay, so let's start giving wrong answers, right? So now I lost a life, 4, I lost a life again, 3, I lost a life, right? And I end the game with 2 points. All right, here's the last thing that we need to do for this game to become reasonable is, first of all, we needed to pick a random question. We are picking random questions. Second of all, I want to shuffle the answers, right? You don't want to present the answers in the order that they're given to us in the file, because that will, they will figure it out. The players will figure it out eventually. Although given how many ancient questions there here, who knows? Anyway, so let's, they would actually even, yes, Jason?
Also, are they also, like, each time you go through the while loop, like what if a question repeats twice?
That's a good
And we
point.
have to,
As I was talking, yes, as I was talking, you have we have a list of about 600 plus questions. It's possible that we pick the same question, right? So if you only asking few questions before you lose your life, the probability is small because there is over 600 questions. But if somebody is really good, yes, this will start happening eventually. What you can do is you can keep track of what questions you ask, right? So this question is just the choice of questions is you can just get an integer from the index where it is and you store it and you will see if that was already asked, or you remove it from your list of questions. That would be another easy way to do it. That once you ask a question, you remove it from the list, from this big list of questions, right? That's that's something else you can deal with. Okay, let's do the last part. I'm running out of time. So there's many ways to do this. You want to shuffle the answers, right? So there are many ways to implement this, but you have to keep in mind two things. When you shuffle the answer, first of all, I need to shuffle the answer, but I have to remember where the correct answer is. Right here, I could easily say, is the answer 1? But now I have to pick. Now I have to figure out, is the answer wherever the correct answer now should be. So when you're shuffling, you better figure out where the correct answer is. I can show you my solution, but there's many other ways to do this. So I have the answer. So in this variable Q, I have a list with 7 elements. The 4 answers are in position 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so far I was displaying them in an order 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of doing that, I can just shuffle these 4 numbers, and whatever I get, I can display it in that order. What do I mean by that? I shuffle 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe it gives me 3, 2, 1, 4. So I display third, first, second, the second. What did I have now? Then the first, third, and the fourth, whatever. You know, hopefully you know what I mean. So what am I saying by this? So I have a little list, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to tell me, and I want to create a permutation, random permutation that's going to tell me which order I should display these 4 answers, right? And random module has that. The function is called shuffle. It just shuffles these elements of this list. And what do we have? What do I have here? How do we spell? I had to check out. It's in a function is in a random module and shuffle. And I want to shuffle P. Okay, so if I shuffle it, let's see what a P is. It used to be 1, 2, 3. Oh, I didn't get to that part. It doesn't matter. Now P is something else. It could be 3, 2, 4, 1. And so that tells me display your question in that order. So if I want it displayed in that random order, I have this, we have this function which is asking the question. I better, in addition to a function, I better pass it that random order that it should yours. That's at least the way I implement. So I want to pass it P. Okay. All right, so we are running out of time, but I tell you, now that I have a P, it's not the ith question that I'm ordering it in. I am following P to determine, so I'm doing P here. I have to fix this. So this is Pi minus 1, because that's telling me what should I display. If the first element of P is 3, this is going to be Q3, so represent that. So I fix that part too. I send a random permutation to my asking question, but then I better fix this too. I have to remember, how do I know where the answer is? So at least in my solution, actually the answer is stored. You can actually see, is the answer that the user gave you is 1 stored in that position of P, okay? So if I check that, let's see, now we can play a full game. Missing. Here I have to pass in my call. Now I have to pass the permutation when I'm displaying a question. Random choice, ask question. Okay, so this has to go before. Okay, ask question. I send Q, I send a random permutation. Now we should have a fully working game. Okay, so now we can really play. What was a hit for Neil Young? Golden years, silver bird, herd of a gold. Does anybody know? Nobody knows. I don't know.
It's 4.
It's
4. Answer is 4.
Okay, correct. There you go. And it's not 1. We know now that correct answer is not 1 anymore. Who invaded Pepperland? Gray meanies, green meanies, black meanies, blue meanies. Anybody?
I think it's blue meanie.
Blue meanies, that's a 4. Correct. In which country does pivo mean beer? I know that one, that's a 3. And we can go on forever. There's so many of us. Who was the captain of the Yellow Submarine? Oh, that's a song, right? Who was the captain of Yellow Submarine? Okay, let's say we start losing now. 1, incorrect. What was the name of Drew Barrymore's character in E.T.? Bertie, Charlie, Gertie, Dottie. Okay, I'm gonna start losing. 1 more life left. Who released the best-selling album American Idiot in 2005? Oh,
Green Day.
Coldplay. 1. Incorrect. All right, we lost, but we have 6 points. That's it for today. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I didn't understand why you wrote B answer -1 equals 1.
Yeah, I didn't really explain that. That was too fast. I always run out of time for this part. You have to ask yourself, you have to ask yourself, where's the correct answer? We shuffle the answers. And the user's telling us, I want a 3rd one. So you want to see, where did the 1 go? Did the answer 1 in my random permutation, did 1 really go to the 3rd position, which is the 2nd, because in a list we started, and that's why it has -1.
Oh, yeah, okay.
See? Okay.
Okay.